So we're talking about criticism this week, and I don't handle it well sometimes, and I fully embrace and admit that. So what is my stupid show? I don't know. It's a Jeskidding show where sometimes I say shit that I don't mean, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I was just kidding. And then other times I say things, and you're like, Jeskidding, and you're like, oh, that made fucking sense. By the way, we're in front of a live chat room audience for those that are listening, so they pipe in from time to time. And we're here with Redneck Rebel and OC Diva today, slash Erica is her name. Erica, what type of criticism do you like, and what kind of criticism do you hate?
Well, I like constructive criticism. There's times, like, look, criticism generally can be a positive thing. And this is gonna sound particular, but there's times I'm more receptive to criticism than not. Like, if I'm in the middle of working on something, and somebody comes by and they're like, "Oh, can you change this, this, and this, and this, and this, and this? Oh, and by the way, this and that and this." I'm like, I'm in the middle of working on it. I'm like, I'm not done. It's like interrupting somebody mid-sentence, and it irritates the shit out of me. And like, it's like I'm not even done finishing a thought. So that irritates me. Or people who will just come by and shit on something I'm doing just to be an asshole because they're having a bad day, and it doesn't offer any growth. And you're always going to get people that interject things that you just necessarily just don't want to hear it. Like I mentioned before, like if I'll post something on Instagram and I know people they mean well, but it's like, "Oh, you should change your lighting on this and that would make it better." I'm like, that's your opinion. That's not any kind of fact. That's just more your taste.
So do you say that you should sometimes? I do this a lot. Consider the source, right? When somebody's being critical of you, do you say, "Oh, I'm trying to figure out where are they coming from"? Like I do that, but sometimes that's bad too. Redneck, do you consider the source when somebody's critical of you?
Yeah, I 100% think it's really important about who it's coming from, because, just talking about OC Diva, I mean, she's obviously, with her profession, she's got such a deep knowledge and understands what she's doing so well that,
And
like,
she's an artist. She's an artist, so she gets that kind of. Just to be clear, so and in your artwork, is it that? Do you find, Erica OC Diva, do you find that when you're more open to criticism, you're able to sort of take it better, even when it's coming from maybe a negative place?
I mean, coming from, like, I've had, and it's interesting, when it's coming from a negative place, it's never valuable. Like, anybody that comes in with negativity, it's not valuable, because usually what it ends up with, somebody gives you, like, just negative to be negative. It's more a reflection on their shortcomings than yours. So somebody's like, "I just don't like this." I'm like, well, what don't you like about it? Or if somebody is harassing the shit out of me just to, like, distract me, or I've had people who've tried to fuck me up at jobs before because they've hit their limit and they've hit their creative ceiling and they can't get any better, so they think in order to protect their job they need to sabotage me. But in those cases, it's usually there's something wrong with them. It's never about the work. It's usually about that person.
So why don't we take some swipes at these critics for a second? I think that they're due, right? Because there are critics out there, people who are critical of others. Where it is, there are several types of critics, and I've listed a few, and you guys can add some in there. And criticism is good as a whole, I think, but there are a bunch of types, and so it really depends on what's the type. But it's not all good. So I wrote down a few. We have the devil's advocate. We have the person that's always just has to play the fucking opposite,
Yeah. Contrarian.
I immediately think of some people like that.
We have the guy who knows everything. You know what I'm saying? And has to sort of make sure that they know everything at every second there. We have the never wrong guy. Sorry, I'm looking at my list because apparently these critics got to me. We have the negative Nancy. Did you just has me negative about everything? We have the just trying to help guy. I'm just trying to help. right.
Yeah.
Right. Hey, I'm just trying to help. You know what I'm saying? We have the critic, the guy who has to put his 2 cents into everything. It's like it can't be said, even if they have no knowledge on the subject whatsoever, unless their sense is heard, they're gonna pipe it in. Like you could be on a thing at the World Trade Center or something, the new World Trade Center, like building it, and the electrician, right? And this guy could show up and be like, "Oh, well, I just think you should plug that wire into that." I'm like, dude, you work at Walmart. What? So tell me,
Oh,
the
God.
building is this one's not going to be good. So I don't know why I went with that analogy, but so we have all these types, and then you have Captain Positive, which is just as bad as the Negative Nancy, because Captain Positive, I went to film school with Captain Positive, or Captain Positive can be male or female, and does not necessarily have to have a disease. But Captain Positive is the
my
person.
God.
It's the person that's like they critique by being like, it's great. Everything about it is so great. I loved everything that you did. And that's bad too, because you're looking for the genuine feedback. So I really loathe some of these people. And then there's people who are just actually helpful, right? Somebody who takes into account your perspective and says, hey, here's a couple thoughts that may or may not be helpful. I find critique with respect to be the most helpful for me at this point in my age. What do you guys think?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, guys, feel free. Take it. Take the ball and run with it.
I just passed it to OC
OC please.
Oh,
The ball is
sorry.
yours.
So that's typically how I like to give feedback. Like if anything but something constructive comes to mind, I stop myself. I'm like, okay, why are you reacting the way you are? Like, so like
Right.
I check myself before I wreck myself. But I mean, when I do my creative streams, sometimes I'll have people come in and ask me, hey, can you take a look at this? And at one point it was like a 3D sculpt that somebody was working on, and I always try to say something positive first, because when you just, to me, and even taking some feelings into account, I just want to like lambast the person when I know they've been working their ass off on this piece. And there's some like benchmarks you look at when you're looking at a piece, right? And I'll see things structurally that if it needs to be addressed, or like, structurally, I think I would move this up a little bit, or I'd move that. And then I'll say something like when it comes down to taste, like, it's like, taste wise, I prefer this, but if you choose to do this, that's cool too. But this is kind of how I feel about this part. And then I just, I just let it go. I never try to over criticize, because I hate when people micromanage me. I never over criticize. I give them something constructive that they can take and either, I don't want to say improve the piece, but make the piece look better for themselves, and have a good interaction. Because if you get the thing that I found, if you just get a bunch of fucking shitty people that don't know how to give criticism or give you a constructive critique, you don't really react well later on.
I don't
I
react.
think what you
I'm
said
sorry.
is a
Go ahead.
perfect way to phrase that too. When you said people ask you, look at this. Like, I think the phrasing of that is really good, because you're just saying, in my opinion, this is how I feel it should be.
Right.
Because you feel it should be one way doesn't make it right or
I'm
wrong.
100%
Yep.
with that. And when people use the word "my opinion" or phrase it in a way that lets you know that it's coming from them, and they recognize that they're not your Lord and Savior with this fucking knowledge that they're gracing you with, the arrogance factor, and people just say, hey, in my opinion, this is how I feel about this. I can take that in a lot better. That's just me. And some people, like, they just need to hear facts and they need to quickly disregard this and that. But I love it when somebody's showing a respect for the fact that they don't know everything. Like, I think the know-it-all critic is the most offensive. And I think the know-it-all critic is the one that's the hardest to absorb, especially in like the arts or a subjective field. It's like, oh, that sucks. When somebody says like, that sucks, I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'm sorry you didn't like it. Now I have to try to decipher, if you have some fucking mental problem, if you have some family problem, right? Or if you just don't like me, or if the actual work sucks, right? So for me, when I make something, it's like I'm always waiting to hear more than, if somebody's like, they really don't like something, I listen to it, and I try to absorb everything, even when somebody's kind of negative. But when I guess I agree with you guys. When somebody comes at me in a very aggressive way, and I don't feel they're actually trying to be helpful, it's unfortunate. But no matter what they say to me, I have trouble absorbing, and they could be right. And that's almost a failure on my part, because I feel like I should be able to just decipher it. But there's so many reasons that people are critical that it's hard to know if they're actually being helpful, dumb as fuck, or you know what I'm saying, or just trying to feel good about themselves.
And I think some guys just try to put themselves over too.
Yeah,
That
yeah, yeah,
way,
exactly.
where it's like, oh man, this is all wrong. You should just do it this way.
Yeah, like the God complex. They like to be,
Yeah.
or your dad, or something like that, because it makes them feel better about themselves. To sort of like, it's like a put down, that criticism. And sometimes it's a really helpful thing, right? Sometimes it's like, hey, if you move your chess piece here, you can win the game easier. But I think that there's a delivery, right? That's much more accepted. And the more sensitive the person is, I'm a sensitive guy. If you criticize me in the wrong way, I'll be like, oh my God, I suck. But then on some days, my opinion is indestructible. It's weird. I think that at least do you guys oscillate sometimes on how you sort of deal with what comes at you? Because I do. Every day I'm like a different guy in how I can absorb somebody else's critique of me. That was a question.
Yeah,
Sorry.
there's definitely some days. I guess maybe it depends on the kind of day I'm having, or maybe the criticism I've already received, or if it's even asked for. Like if somebody just comes in and just starts piling some shit on top of you.
Do you feel that there's, like, Erica went to art school, right? And you're an IT major, and I went to film school. I think that there are some times, like in a class, where criticism that's very blunt is necessary, because it's like you're either doing something craft-wise or programming or whatever very right or very wrong.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a right and a wrong way, like concrete, yeah, like maybe you just have to be direct and say, this is not how we do this.
Right. What do you think, Erica? Like, you went to, they were pretty harsh, right, when you went to art school?
Oh, you mean like throwing projects across the room? Oh yeah.
Is that what they did?
Yeah. If luckily
Wow.
I didn't. No, luckily I
Jesus.
didn't have those professors, but I'm fucking terrible at perspective drawing. That's probably why I do 3D. And the professor, he was nice enough to not call out your name. He'd be like, this person does not understand perspective at all. But he was actually very nice to me because he saw I was fucking working my ass off. I would go like to extra classes to try to get better, and he gave me a passing grade. But there were teachers that would legit take students' projects and throw it across the room
Yeah.
or stomp on it.
We had that in film school too. There was a guy, I'm not going to give his name. I was never in his class. He would take scripts that people wrote, like screenplays, and hurl them. Like, because he felt that they were being lazy. And maybe he was right. Listen, I was a teacher a couple times in film, and I'm fucking brutally honest. Brutal. But I'm nice in the way that, like, I don't tear them down personally, but I'm just honest. And I give as much praise as I do, I give as much positive reinforcement as I do negative. But I'm going to be real about what I'm looking at, and real about what I thought the effort was when I'm sort of teaching somebody else. Because I think it's a disservice to them not to do it. But I do make sure these days to phrase more things that are my opinion. To say, hey, this is just my opinion. But I'm not going to... I hate it when people say shit and they don't break it down. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're like... Even a positive one. I used to have a guy who was interning for me, who's turned out to be like a really good filmmaker and friend. And he would come over to my house. I was teaching him and trying to mentor him, and I would be working a project, and I'd say, "Well, what do you think of this?" He'd say, "I liked it." And I'd look at him, okay. Well, what'd you like about it? And at that time, he just couldn't say. And nor did he realize that in his feedback or his critique of this, that shit was fucking unhelpful. I mean, I'm glad you liked it, but you may be just saying that to be nice. It may just be an obscure sort of thing that you put out into the universe to be to make me feel good. But unless you can sort of list specifics of what you liked about it or didn't like about it, then it's like it's a bad form of feedback, in my opinion, because it's just like checking a box. And I think in the same thing in a negative sense, right? When we play a video game or this and that, and somebody's being an asshole about it, it's like, well, you suck. That's not helpful. You know what I'm saying? And then it just makes the other person feel bad, and then they just don't want to play anymore or do that thing. That's that kind of criticism I react to. So, sorry guys, you know me, I just go on these fucking things, and I just go on and on and on and on. So, in considering the source, how much work do you have to think of? Do you think you should do when considering the source of something that's like ambiguous about somebody being very critical of you? Like, how much mental work do you do to try to figure out if you should listen to it or not? That's either one. Field it.
It's usually the language. Like, I mean, there's people that I can't stand that are contrarian just to be contrarian. I'm like, why? You
Yeah, I
disagree
fucking
with
hate
me
that.
just because you want to disagree with me. Okay.
Right.
So I tend to ignore them, or like people that are overly critical about something. Like I said, like the micromanaging type people. I'm just like, all right, your heart's in the right place, but it's like a fucking avalanche. I'm like, I'm just not gonna ask or listen to what you say because they're, like I said, they don't mean to be overbearing, but they are. And sometimes it's coming from a good place, but when somebody just rattles something off or they just say I don't like it or something, I'm just like, I just tend to ignore them. I'm like, and if you know what, I there's people that I like their opinions on things. Like for example, Jesse, not because he's my friend, but I know he's going to give me an honest critique on something. But like when I was working on that piece I did for the UFC, I really wanted him to look at it because that was something that people who don't know much about animation or some of the things I was referring to in the piece, he has the type of eye that I needed. I need somebody that doesn't know anything about anime or animation to look at this to see if it makes sense and to see does this look like the two people I want it to look like. So there's certain people I'll go to, again, not because they're going to kiss my ass, but because I know I need their perspective and I know they're going to give me the feedback I need. And again, not in an ass kissing way. They just cut to the point. Like Jesse will be like, I think if you change this and change that, I think it'll sell the idea better. And that's what I find valuable versus somebody, if I'll show them something and give me like 500 things I need to fix, I just don't want to work on it anymore. It's like, well, and then even that's when I start saying it starts to become about an opinion, right? Because everybody has an opinion, and sure, a couple of things they say may have a point. Like if they say something that I was saying, it's like, okay, let me take a look at this. But if there's a bunch of other shit alongside of that, I was like, no, I'm just that's extra. I'm not even gonna pay attention
So
to
with
that.
criticism, what's interesting when you talk about sort of me and you working, we've worked on a bunch of projects together, and I'll go to the chat room in a second. There's a bunch of comments there, but I'm working on projects together. You get to know each other, right, in how you react to feedback, right, and because everybody's got sort of like buttons that can be easily pushed of shit that they're doing if they're working hard on it, right? Somebody in the comment, TSL in the chat room said, how to deal with criticism, have your own journey in life. So that's a very self-assured position that he took there. And one of the ways you can deal with criticism is to sort of just ignore it, and sort of just pursue your own thing. But I don't think that's 100% healthy either. I think that can be really bad. I think that because I'm not saying that that's your position, TSL, but I think that other people's contribution to what you're doing can be massively valuable. And over time, you can learn. I'm always hoping to grow to filter what people say and don't say to me, And he just said, again, the problem with most feedback, it is not specific. And we talked about that already. Mm-hmm. Somebody commenting, oh, I liked it. And I'm like, well, what'd you like about it? Or it sucked, or you're garbage, which we get on the internet a lot. Like, okay, well, what's garbage about me? Do I smell like old fruit? Do I smell like poop? What kind of garbage was thrown into that garbage? Because I want to know, because it helps me in the future to not be garbage. Well, this is a bad example, but which is totally fine. And a quick hello to Majestic and Blade and TSL and Yukio and Jerry and Andy and all the people in the chat room. Thank you, as always, for stopping by. These are people, for those that are listening, that are in a live chat room giving comments for the show. So what do you think shapes your... I mean, hopefully it grows. It's grown for me, my ability to take criticism over the years. I used to be super defensive. I still can be. And I'm sure you guys will pipe in about your own sort of defensiveness. I'd love to hear about it, so put that in your brains before I go on to 42 more topics. But what do you think shapes your initial sort of like ability to take criticism? I think it's your parents. I really do. I think your parents and the immediate culture you grew up in sort of gives you the way of which you react to it, because some parents are super critical and some parents are not critical enough. What do you guys think? And then talk about defensiveness. Either one of you. Doesn't matter.
I guess, how you're raised and how you grow up can definitely have some effect on that. I mean, I was always taught, to take the good criticism, good being the specific and genuine criticism. And a lot of times with me, tone is very important.
Yes.
The person that's saying it, like if somebody, You know, like we were talking about Jesse being a good source of feedback because he's honest and specific and genuine.
Hopefully nice.
Uh,
Handsome.
Hopefully nice.
Handsome. Obviously.
Gorgeous.
Please, thank
lovely.
you. Thank you. I'm not being critical of your answer, but I figured those needed to be inserted. That was my feedback. Please continue.
But I think the positive things are good too. Like when you ask somebody, you know, like with your scenario, you say, well, what do you like about it? You know, because then somebody can tell you what they like. And then it's
Right.
like, so you know to do that again, or maybe you can improve and do better than that from that one thing that you know is going to click with people.
Right.
And as far as like the defensiveness, I really only get super defensive if people are really just pricks about it.
Yeah.
More or less.
And what about you,
it's,
Erica?
It's really the tone.
So he said our parents shape it and.
Well, yeah. How do you
defensive, right?
feel that your parents shape it? Do you find yourself to be somewhat defensive about it at times? Do you feel like where did it come from for you? Your ability to take criticism in general. I think it comes from a very early age. I'm sure it changes from there, but that's my opinion.
Well, like, you know, when I was younger, you know, you'd always go to your parents and be like, "Hey, do you like what I did?" Almost like seeking approval.
Right. That's interesting.
And my parents were never dicks to me. Like when I was a little kid, like my mom and my dad were, you know, did their best to not smash me. But sometimes I could be an annoying little kid, and they'd be like, "Please go away," because kids can be fucking annoying. Let's just be honest. And then I've gotten better about taking criticism, but I still have my moments where I get defensive. But in general, I think the thing that annoys me the most is when I'm really working my ass off on something and somebody's they're just not being helpful. That's when I get really angry, and that's when you tend to see me get defensive. I'm like, it's like, look, did the best that I could. This is what I could do. And you know what? The criticism is like, you didn't do good enough. Why couldn't you have done this better? I'm like, I did the best I fucking could with what I had at that time. It's like, and that's not an excuse. That's just a fact. I did the best that I could at that time. When somebody just criticizes you and is like, it's not good enough, or it's never going to be good enough. I guess this is coming from the approval thing. Like sometimes criticism is a validation that you did a good job.
I agree with that. You know what kills me? I'm going to rant for a second about the asshole that uses criticism as an excuse to be an asshole. I fucking hate that guy. I really do. And and then it's like they're an asshole to you, and then they're like, it just used to fucking kill me. They're a total asshole to you. They shit on you. They hide it under the guise of criticism. And then they're like, you just need to learn to get a thick skin.
Oh God.
Right? You just can't. And then the famous fucking phrase, you just can't take criticism.
Oh my
and I'm
God.
like, fuck you, dude. You just can't shut the fuck up. This is like the unwanted hug. I don't know how much I believe or don't believe that. I don't know. That depends on the situation. But the unwanted fucking critic, that shit is real. Because nobody
That's
fucking...
the same kind of guys that are like, you know, everyone just thinks I'm an asshole because I'm straight up.
Yeah, you're not just straight up. You're just an asshole. You're a straight up asshole, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And there's sometimes feedback is good, right? Sometimes, though, you need to shut the fuck up because nobody asked for your opinion, guy. You know what I'm saying? I didn't ask. So when the person's like, hey, you're painting that line wrong, I'm like, listen, buddy, right? This line is in my own private fucking, whatever. I'm on an easel in the Central Park or whatever, and I'm painting a fucking line, right? I didn't ask you to come up to an easel and say, hey, you're painting that line wrong, right? Keep fucking jogging, asshole, because my painting is called fucking lines drawn wrong. So you don't understand the context of what I'm doing, and you're just coming over here to be a dick about it. So just keep walking. Take your criticism somewhere else. And then we have the professional critic. Oh, man, do I fucking hate these people, too, all of a sudden. Because they are fueling not only the outrage machine, but, like, you take, for instance, I think we finally hit the core of this conversation. And quick shout out to DQ for the idea for this episode, by the way. He's in the chat room. Thank you, sir. So the professional critic, the person who gets paid to be overtly nasty or overtly positive, but usually overtly nasty, right? And we're going to take a prime example, right? Which is the launch of the game Anthem recently online. It's a game. Some people know it. Some people don't. Those that are listening may not know it, but it's a video game. It got released, and there was a pile-on of people who didn't like it. Now, I played the game, and OC Diva played it, and to us, it was really fun. So this made no sense. And to our friend David, we were playing it together. So the critics, though, one after the other, were like falling over each other to shit on this thing, and not like a balanced criticism, just shit on it parade, because that shitting on it got them clicks. Do you know what I'm saying? So I felt like when you're being critical only because it benefits you, right? That's a disgusting thing. And then hiding behind the banner of like, I'm just trying to be helpful. No, you're not. You're just trying to make money. So you're it's like a consider the source moment. It's like you're just being a fucking selfish douchebag trying to fucking play upon other people's already preconceived notions of something, as opposed to having your own critical view of it. Having a critical view of it is being able to see many sides of something. That's a critical view of something. If you just take a very quick slant at something, but you don't give a balanced bit of feedback on it, I think that you're doing it a disservice. Sorry, I ranted. Do you guys have anything to contribute to this rant? Because I can just keep going. Because that shit pisses me off. The professional critic, fuck that guy. Fuck that guy who's corrupted by fucking money, right? And you know what the saddest thing of all is for the professional fucking critic is that motherfucker can't take criticism at all.
Nope.
If you go back at them and be like, oh my God, you said a thing, and be like, how dare you? I'm allowed to have my opinion. Yeah, well, I'm allowed to have an opinion about your opinion, dick. So there, choke on that, bitch. Anyway, sorry. Right? So, but that is my reaction to these very sensitive but very aggressive professional critics. Sorry, you were gonna say OCD? I'm getting off my ladder.
I love when Jess starts cutting a promo like that.
Yeah,
like it's so good.
Listen, I'm talking about the frogs are gay soon because it's gonna make my ratings go up. Thank you so much, you maniacs out there who said that crazy shit. All right, please, you were gonna say, guys. Hard
yeah,
I know.
It's interesting because like I think some professional critics are helpful. Like sometimes they can go a little too far. Like the Red Letter Media guys. I'm not saying they go too far, but their criticism of the Star Wars prequels. Anybody who likes them, this is just my opinion.
I'll just say it. They're shit. All right, sorry. Don't hate me.
No.
Go ahead, please.
No, but they gave a very in-depth, basically, screenwriting and film class dissertation on why they didn't work. They told you very carefully why they were not good, and that was incredibly helpful, and even helped me learn to look at things in a different way. But most of the professional critics, they ain't helpful at all. Like it's interesting. Most of them are either they failed at trying to I'm gonna say game critics. Like game critics are either wannabe game developers or they're failed game developers. And there's like a certain type of venom that some of them take that I find very
agreed.
off-putting.
Yeah,
it's like this. They have to put like this jealousy in it. I'm like, wait a minute. And most of them lack the basic fundamentals and understanding of what it takes to make a game. It's like, oh, I play a bunch of games I know about. No, you've never made a game. You've never sat down and worked on marketing for a game. You've never been up till 6 in the morning working.
Yeah, agreed.
You've not suffered.
Can I coin a phrase for what you're saying? We're gonna call these. Sure. This is the bitter critic. They're bitter because their shit didn't go right, and they're taking it out on those that are doing it. So please continue.
Yeah, and the overwhelming thing that I got from the fallout from Anthem is I feel like they wanted to shit on EA for a reason, and they wanted to shit on BioWare for a reason because they were mad about Mass Effect, but they couldn't get mad at it because it's their darling. It's Mass Effect. We can't get too mad at Dragon's Age because it's our darling. Like Dragon's Age 2, I think was kind of a rough title for some people, but it's like they couldn't get mad at it. Anthem came out. EA had pulled its shit with Battlefront, with Star Wars, and I think they just wanted something to get mad at. And no, Anthem is not a flawless game, but it's not a 6, it's not a 5, but it's not a 9, and it's not a 10. It's a 7 or an 8 game. It needs things the things need to be addressed, they're fixing them. They've tried to fix the load times. They've tried to fix the drops. They're making improvements, but when I hear some of the things that these people said or some of the people that reviewed it, I'm like, it's like, I played the same game as you at the same time. I have a much more informed opinion than most of you, and I don't think there's really, like, the amount of stuff that they were talking about. I'm like, how did you guys play this? Who did you play with? How long did you play it? can you actually give a fair opinion about this game when you're rushed to be the first one to have your review up?
And people's expectations are honestly really unrealistic too, because like if a game releases and it has anything wrong with it at all, people are just very, very overly critical. Like nothing ever gets released perfect.
Well, I think that people are trying to line up opinions, right? And especially nowadays, negative opinions line up better than anything. And they get guys that's fucking criticism. You know, and some of the criticism in there is actually useful and honest. But some of it's off the fucking wall. It's crazy. It's crazy down.
Yeah.
So,
and like...
I'm sorry, please. Just really quick, hold that thought. Anybody who wants to join the chat, just go to the Discord and go into the voice chat, and I'll drag you in one at a time. Are you gonna say OCD? I'm sorry.
Yeah, and the thing that I find kind of unfortunate. I mean, there's a couple things. It's I don't know why it's not okay to say this game was not my taste. So, and I guess you can't say that if you're being reviewed because your say is definitive. But this is a thing that I think you kind of said this already. Just the thing that made me the most sick about these reviews. It's like, this game's a fucking piece of shit. Fuck Anthem. Fuck BioWare. Oh, but come watch me play it. I'll be streaming it. Come watch me stream it.
Come hang out with me. Give me money.
And then the even more interesting thing is usually when a game's a piece of shit, that's it. But they need to keep telling you every week or every day why this game is a piece of shit because it gives them views. And I just get confused by it. And they also don't stop to think that people worked very hard on this game. And some people are going to lose their jobs. And BioWare, I hope it doesn't happen. Potentially BioWare could close because people are like, this game's a flop. It's this, it's that. I'm like,
but at the same time, sometimes it's like a weird mixture, right? Like everything. There's no black and white on this. Feedback is necessary for things that are in the world. It's necessary. Feedback is necessary for what I'm doing here. It's not a dirty word for somebody to say, hey, I'm loving what you're doing, or I like it when you do this more than this. Now, if somebody just comes in my chat room and says, I fucking hate everything you do, I say, duly noted, get the fuck out, because this is not the place for you. You know what I'm saying? Because if you hate everything here, then why are you
Eric
here?
Bischoff says, too. Another good quote from Eric Bischoff. He says, controversy creates cash.
It does. And part of one of my reasons, I believe, that I have stunted at different points in my career is that I like to look at things in a nuanced manner. I don't take 100% hard lines on things. I take things and I discuss them so to get a really non-black and white picture out of them. And that's not a popular thing to do. Here we're having a discussion. Here we're having a thing that when people leave this room or leave listening to this, they have more to say about it because their brain is thinking about it because we're hitting it from a bunch of different perspectives. And that's not popular. Conversation is not popular. Being an opinionated asshole has become extremely popular. So I'm going to say, like I said, people can come into the chat if you like, but I want to say a couple phrases, and I want you guys to react to them quickly. Okay? Anybody in the chat room as well, it's fine. Okay? And we'll start each time with Erica, and then we'll go Redneck. All right? But just your quick, fast reaction to what I say. Okay? The first one. I'm entitled to my opinion.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, very quick answers my, and I'll react to it too, I guess. I mean, yeah, you're entitled to it. I think it's fucking stupid, but you're entitled to it. Or that's actually, you are entitled to your opinion, and I think you brought up some good points. Now, that's me working in an office, but I'm not there. I'm at home, so fuck you. That'd be my answer. Don't tell me how to do my job. That's the other side.
Yeah, don't tell me how I know how to do. It means you're not effectively communicating criticism. You're being a pain in the ass. Instead of getting criticism, you're trying to tell them how to do things.
I'd say then don't tell me either.
Well, but in my case, like if you're saying as the defensive side, as the person receiving the criticism, don't tell me how to do my job. Maybe sometimes if they're right, you should maybe listen to it. But I guess if you're in the middle of something, fuck off. I'm programming the thing that will stop the next Facebook hack from it going down for the next 17 days. I don't know. Maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. How about I'm just playing devil's advocate. I fucking hate that guy.
Okay. I didn't invite the devil to this critique session. Please go home.
That's fair.
It's like, please go somewhere else. Not helpful.
Yeah, listen, opposite fucking guy. You're not playing devil's advocate. You're just being a fucking dick. and you're just trying to be a contrarian because you don't like me. And guess what? I don't like you either. So you can take those fucking horns and stick it up your butthole.
A contrarian.
Oh my God. Where did I go with that? All right. This is my favorite. And it's like I literally feel like I'm reading off a list of what the president might say on this list. So forgive me. Well, everybody is saying blank.
Who's everybody? And
exactly what I was going to say. Who is everybody?
Who's everybody besides the fucking ficus that you talk to on your desk?
Yeah, exactly. Who's everybody? So people are saying, I hear that. It's like, what? How do these fuckers become the fucking horse whisperer of other people's opinions, right? They're like, the moon is fucking made of cheese. I hear everyone saying it. No, you're saying it. Just own it for your own fucking opinion. You know what I'm saying? It's okay to just have it be yours. That's kind of what we're getting back to, and how to deal with criticism. And the funny thing about this podcast is this has turned very quickly from how to deal with criticism into fuck critics, right? Which is not good because we're trying to get across the actual point of how you handle it on the proper side. But that's boring. I'd rather be critical of that. I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's muck bad critics.
No,
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah. I was just gonna say, I don't think, and none of us here is saying we don't value criticism. We're talking about the fucking shit that isn't criticism.
Right, the shit that's pretending to be criticism, right? That's what everyone is saying, that you are not a good streamer or podcaster, right? Oh, who'd you hear that from? Your fucking dog? Your dog talks to you now, son of Sam, you piece of shit? Don't tell me my show's not good from your dog's perspective. Just tell me you don't fucking like it. And that's fine. I can live with that.
That doesn't like you anyway and wouldn't like it regardless.
I've had a job where somebody pulled me into the office and said, you know, and God bless him, I love the guy, but he's like, everyone hates you. And no, they didn't. They didn't hate me because I asked everybody. It was just one person and it was blown out of fucking proportion. And guess what? I didn't fucking like them either. And that was my opinion of them. Well, actually, I did kind of like them. It was taken out of context. I was Jeskidding as opposed to Jeskidding in the moment. But point is, like, if your opinion should be valid enough. You know what I'm saying? You don't need to group your opinion in with fucking 42 fictional people. Or in the case of our president, with fucking 40 million fictional people. Just to say, hey, this is what I think. And that's fine. I'll take it as more valid. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's almost like it's like a way of bullying you. Like, I have all these people behind me that agree with me that you're doing a bad job. It's like, okay, who are these people?
Right.
Oh, nobody. Okay, so it's just you.
It's an attempt to give them credibility in what they're trying to do.
Right. Exactly. It's a validating stance for their bullshit. Okay, here's one of my favorites. I do like this one. It's not my cup of tea.
That's nice. That's nicely telling you, hey, you know what? I don't like it without. This is my new favorite saying. You're not yucking somebody else's yum.
I do like the saying. I do like this a lot. It sounds kind of like spooge, but it's good. I do like it because it says, I don't like what you're doing, but I am stating very clearly that is just my opinion. You know what I'm saying? And I don't want to ruin it by making it sound like it's everybody's opinion. It's just it's a respectful criticism.
I mean, all you're basically saying with that is, you know, it's not my type of thing. So, you know, they can't say it's good or bad. It's just not for them.
Yeah, I'm not into, you know, dressing up as a fucking furry and doing funny things in sexual ways with people, as dressed up as a giant mascot or whatever the fuck that is, with respect to you. That's not my cup of tea. I'm not going to be, we won't be having tea time with that. I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pass.
You're not shitting on them.
No, but if that's what you like, that's what I like. It's like when people have respectful things about I hate it when people critique what other people actually like. That shit drives me crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I fucking like this. Well, it sucks. Fuck you, asshole. You know what I'm saying? Like, just say you think it sucks. Because I use the word, I like this. You didn't say, I think it sucks. You said, it sucks. Those are very different things. Because you're stating your shit as hashtag facts. And that's just hashtag bullshit.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying?
Man.
And if I called him on it, well, I have the right to my opinion. Oh, let's get to that one. How about that one? I have a right to my opinion. We did that already. I'm entitled to my opinion.
Yeah.
I guess, like,
well,
I'm sorry.
Well, like, sure, you're entitled to it. It doesn't mean it's fucking right. It just means it's an opinion. It's not a fact, you fucknut. I hate those people so much. It's It's an opinion.
So apparently, the three of us, especially me in this case, doesn't really know how to deal with criticism. Because everything I said is filled with so much hatred for it. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, I guess criticism in some ways can be harsh and it can be soft. You know, I didn't want to use hard or soft because that always comes across as sexual. But it can be harsh or it can be soft, and I prefer it softer. Like, you know what I mean? I prefer people to say, in my opinion, or feedback, because I'm a sensitive guy. But if you catch me in the wrong moment, I'm not a sensitive guy at all. I'll just be like, I just tune you out, because I know the context of the situation is that I should just tune you out. And sometimes you have a valuable opinion. The worst thing is when somebody who has a valuable piece of feedback and their delivery is so bad, or they have so much of their own arrogance or bullshit baked in, that people will ignore your opinion because you don't approach it in a respectful, soft manner. What do you think?
Some people may just, I don't know, like, some people just phrase things bad, not purposely. Like, they just don't know how to deliver it, per se.
Right. So, I mean, I play a lot of competitive video games. I'm not saying I'm good or bad at them. And we play a couple in particular that are very hostile and very, this is a perfect topic for it, because very baked in people's opinions of each other. I think one of the dangerous things in opinions in any sort of like more intense environment is to never, being a good critic, which is kind of the opposite of what this thing was supposed to be about, but being a good critic is to never try to personalize something. And if you do personalize it beyond the actual thing, be very careful about how you do it. If like, this painting sucks because you suck, is very different than this is not my type of painting. I'm not a good measure of it, or I don't like something specific. I don't like the lines you did in this painting, or, you know, I'm not a fan of those kinds of colors. You know, it's very respectful, as opposed to, you painted this painting, therefore you must be mentally unstable. It's like, you know what I'm saying? That's a very personalized way to put a criticism. So fuck that guy. My critique of that guy is, hey, you're a dick. And if your defense of that is, well, you just can't take criticism, well, it's like, well, you can't take it either. So just keep tossing that back and forth. So no, I'm sorry, go ahead, Erica, please.
No, I say it's interesting, because I was just thinking about kind of like the sensationalism that's been built around people with horrible opinions, like Gordon Ramsay. That guy's an asshole. Like, I'm not saying as a person, I don't know him.
He's famous.
But the way he is on his shows, like, there's some, like, look, if somebody's being a piece of shit and the only way to get through them is to yell at them and, like, just basically dress them down, sometimes it's necessary that you need to be a fire-breathing dragon to be like, all right.
I agree.
You're not listening to me when I'm nice.
I agree.
So I'm gonna basically take the hedge clippers to you. But it's been turned into a TV show, and like, I stop and I think, it's like, what if it's not on TV? What made this guy into a fire breathing dragon? And like, thankfully I did not work with this director, but there were directors at some of my jobs that would just light people up, and they were miserable fucking bastards.
And for no reason, right? Yeah.
And they would use the excuse, oh, you need to be tough to work in this industry. It's like, no, motherfucker, I am tough because I'm here. But you trying to basically dehumanize me and turn me into either crap or basically a larval version of you isn't going to happen.
Now, in some cases, like quick criticism in things that require fast logic to get things done is necessary. And that needs to be very straight and very aggressive. But it doesn't have to personalize. Like, I think that your situation, what you're describing, is somebody just coming from a place of fucking arrogance that needs to feel self-important in that criticism. But Redneck was a firefighter, and I believe you still are, sometimes volunteer. Correct me if I'm wrong. But in firefighting, you can't be like, hey, dude, you need to pick up that fucking ladder and get up that thing. There's no time for niceties in that scenario. And I'm asking you really as a question. But in those cases, it's not about people's getting their feelings hurt. It's about saving that person's life. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with a lot of guys like that. I mean, it's just like, when you're in the moment, it's like, you know, I wish I had a more specific example I could think of right off, but that definitely does happen, where it's like, hey, man, what the fuck are you doing?
Right.
Like,
you have to be straightforward. You have to be.
Yeah.
So, but I think in that context, right, it's understood. It's understood that I'm saying this to get it done and get it done quickly. I mean, I've had film shoots where I've had to turn to people and be very aggressive because I have 2 fucking minutes, right? And they need to understand the context of that situation that I'm under a lot of pressure and it has to happen right now in the way that I see fit, and there can only be one person in charge. But those moments, the context is that people just need to, unfortunately, on the receiving side of that criticism, which is what we were getting to today, how to deal with criticism, they just need to deal with it and move on. You know what I'm saying? And because those moments are pressure-filled moments. But we're talking, most of this conversation has been about the day-to-day opinion of just people with bigger, larger-than-life opinions. But in sort of pressure situations, there's no time for that. And you want and apologies can come later. This and that. You just gotta get shit done now. And if somebody's not doing it, they get yelled at. I've got yelled at once by the fire department. I don't know if I told this story. Did I? In another podcast where the fire department yelled at me? Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think so. Okay, so they were wrong, by the way, and they were entitled to their opinion.
I want to hear it.
Okay, so I'm working in a building with my friend in the building in New York City. And I'm running the elevator, and we were all kind of lazy and doing jack shit up and down. And the super, who's this amazing Scottish guy, comes flying into the elevator. And he goes, "Take me upstairs. There's a fucking fire." Right? So I'm like, "What?"
Irish.
Right? I don't know how to do a Scottish accent. But you're entitled to your opinion of my accent, right? How dare you? That's one unwanted opinion at this moment. No, we totally love you. So I go up, I push the button, it goes up, right? And he goes up to the door, and he touches the door, and I think the whole floor was on fire in this building. And he touches it, he goes, "Oh, it's fucking hot." Right? And I'm like standing there, right? And then he just runs up the stairs. And so I'm met with a choice at this moment. What the fuck do I do? He just left. And the building is literally on fire. So I'm like, I'm not leaving my wingman or whatever went through my head. I'm not going downstairs. He's waiting for me to, what if he burns? So I wait. And then all of a sudden, the fucking fire light on the elevator goes off and it starts taking me down to the first floor.
Oh.
Right? I'm like, oh, what happened? And then door opens up and there's giant firefighters like that make me look like a 12-year-old, right? Come bustling in, right? And push me out of the elevator and they go up, right? And later on, the firefighter comes up to me in the lobby, right? And he starts screaming at me. And his feedback in that pressure-filled moment to me was, he's like, when the fucking elevator calls, you just, because I guess they had rung the elevator, but I was waiting for my boss who ran off. That's not my fault. He's like, you want to watch your fucking fire rent backdraft, he said to me. And this, for years, this became a joke of how this poor firefighter was snapped.
That's a pretty good line.
Yeah, it was actually pretty good. But he was totally incorrect. I wasn't trying to stop them from coming up. I had no idea that the firemen were in the lobby. And that's just his fucking opinion in that stressful moment after the fact, of which he was wrong. But in that moment, I understood, here's a guy that just put his life on the line to go up to this fire. And I guess he just didn't like it when people got in the way of his job. So in that context, I wasn't offended. I got a little scared because he had a giant axe and a hat. But I don't know what made this story go on. This guy in the chat room, Slav said, "This is New York." Yes, New York. Yeah, your style of criticism is on a different level. Well, yeah. I mean, New Yorkers are very straightforward. But we're fucking honest. Right, as opposed to Los Angeles. Oh my God, don't even get me started. Los Angeles the criticism is, you're the greatest thing that ever happened to our film studio. I can't believe I met you. I can't wait to work with you. And then they never call you again. That's their criticism out there. That's like the silent fuck you in Los Angeles. So anyway, let's talk about how to deal with criticism. And what's up, Simi? How do you, with all these things about how much we hate critics, right? How do you deal with criticism, Erica? How do you deal with people giving you feedback?
I don't know, contextual, but like.
Okay, I'll give you a context, right? I'm gonna give you a context. So, you're streaming online, right? Mm. And you're drawing something, and all of a sudden somebody hosts you, right? And a lot of people start shooting opinions at you. Some are highly negative. Some are super positive. How do you deal with all this stuff without sort of losing your cool?
Not losing my... So I can usually decipher just people saying random shit, and I appreciate when people say something positive. But if somebody says something that catches my attention, like I'll look at the drawing and like I'll flip it or turn it upside down, or if it's a model, I'll look at something, or like I'll like I actually had somebody's like, oh, you got to do this with a 3D model. Don't forget to do this. I'm like, dude, I'm doing one thing at a time. It's like, I see what you're saying. I agree with you. I'll get to it in a moment. I can only do one thing at a time.
Do you find that sometimes people get angry when their criticism is not acknowledged?
Yeah, but that has nothing to do with criticism. That has to do with something that's going on in their head. That has nothing to do with me.
Interesting.
Because sometimes maybe somebody like having their criticism heard is a form of validation, which I can completely understand that. Like, or somebody that you look up to like listens to like a piece of criticism like that. It's like that makes sense. But like I said, generally I can usually decipher who's being a dick and who's trying to be helpful. It's usually the way it's worded. I'm like,
I have, and professionally, I think that you're very good. I work with OC Diva quite a bit. Yeah, I'll talk to that Sex Lab. I haven't answered to that. The professionally, I found like I've gotten really good to the point where I can really, because I've done a lot of editing for people, and editing is really like interpreting what people want. So I'm really, I ask a lot of questions for people. I'm like, oh, well, what do you think? Well, how did that, I ask things like, how did that make you feel? That part of that thing. Okay, I know that it's not working for you. Is there something about it that really bothered you? I find the best way to deal with professional feedback is to ask more questions. Because I think that the other person really feels like you're honoring their position. You're really being thoughtful of what they say to you, but at the same time, you need more information to sort of go through. And how do you guys deal with professional criticism? And then we'll talk to Slav for a sec.
You go ahead, Redneck. I've been blabbing a lot.
See, that's
professional
self-criticism.
criticism, I think it's kind of depends on the context. Like if it's something that's like a black or white, right or wrong situation, and somebody's like, that's not how you do that, and then they say this is the way you do that. I mean, I just absorb the knowledge more or less.
You're very open.
Like, yeah, I mean, it's like I think like learning just in general is fun, and I love to just like learn about anything, and that's job included. I want to be skilled in my profession, so if it's like in the context of that, it's like, okay, that's what I'll do.
I think that's a great point. I think that if you are the person, right, and how to deal with criticism, which we kind of avoided because we needed to rant for a while about actual fake critics, or money-grubbing dickheads. But I think that how to deal with criticism, if you are coming from the context of I want to improve, right, then you can basically, this is how I've evolved myself at least. I try to filter everything in my own brain that's coming to me. I try not to personalize it, and I try to see it as a way to grow what I'm trying to do. So when people in my chat room say X, Y, or Z, I listen to it. And I try to say, okay, is there some value here? And I filter it. And if there's value that goes through my filter that gets through, I say, okay, well, that was an interesting thought. That was an interesting bit of feedback, right? Even though they're being a dick to me, if I hear the same thing, even if it's aggressive, if I hear the same thing over and over and over, right? Not from them saying, everybody's saying, but from actually hearing everybody saying the same thing. Like, I don't like it when you wear shoes on your podcast. Now, I may not change it because my filter may say that I need to wear shoes because I smell my own feet. But, and they smell good. But I at least take the note, right? And say, okay, well, there's something here. When I do this, it pushes the buttons in them. So therefore, I take feedback in that way as a way to not only learn about what I can do better, but to learn more about them. And I think that when you get that bi-directional communication going, it shows respect, but also allows you to grow. But that's how you approach the criticism itself. But we had talked before about unwanted criticism. So Slav in the chat room asked, he said, how would you deal with a boss that is riding you nonstop or criticize your work for not being completed, even when it's not your fault? And that's a tricky situation, Slav. I don't know, because I don't know your boss, right? And I don't know the work itself. But I would say, how do you deal with it? Well, you don't deal with it passive-aggressively because he's your boss. You don't deal with it aggressively because he's your boss, and he'll take it as a challenge to his authority and that you don't agree or think that he should be in charge, right? So I think that the way to deal with him is to say, I understand. Let them know that they're being heard, right? I completely understand. And be very respectful and say, is there a way to clarify this? Because here's the thing that I did do, and I want to understand the things that I didn't do so that I can do it better, right? Because once you understand what their needs are, it gets a lot easier. And sometimes they're just being an asshole about it, and sometimes you have to leave and you have to quit. But other times you may be able to really create a more of a vibe. If what they need is for their workers to get X done, or you feel that another scenario is where they're taking out their aggression on you for other people not doing shit. And that's a tricky spot. But the best way you can do that is to say, well, here's my work. But I totally understand that you're frustrated because things aren't happening fast enough. Then you say at least you're on their side. So that's the best answer to give, but that's I don't know. Somebody asked, is being cancerous fun? Do you feel nice when you bully others? Me personally, no. But sometimes I feel good when I stand up to a bully and basically verbally whoop their ass. That feels good sometimes. I'm not going to lie about that. Sometimes I feel like, hey, because there's a sense of pride and I stood up for myself. You know, when somebody comes in and I really can sense what they're actually trying to say is not trying to give me constructive feedback or helpful, and they're trying to take a shot at me, I will stand up for myself. But I've had situations where I've stood up for myself and I didn't feel very good about it after because the rage beast came out. And that's more of a personal issue, is like I don't want to be that angry at anyone ever. So it even has nothing to do with that person, you know? I think there's situations where feedback can be feedback that's disguised as feedback is really actually an attack, which a lot of people guise attacks as feedback. Not everybody. Some feedback is just amazing and helpful. Those people sometimes need to be dealt with and sometimes just need to be walked away from because they've designed an entire personality around making you feel like shit. I had these two friends, and they're friends of mine. One is still a friend. But they used to, in college, go out to, it's terrible. They would go out to have coffee with me at like a Denny's and this and that. And they would use it as, they'd guise their criticism of me and use all these things of just playing devil's advocate and everyone's just saying, or just to try to get a rise out of me. And it took me a while to realize that they were just having a laugh at my expense. And I never forgot it. I forgave it, one of them, in my brain, but realized that they were so unhappy with themselves that the only way for them to make themselves feel better is to knock somebody down a peg. And in that kind of way, you walk away. So Slav is saying the problem is I have is internal. When someone criticizes me, it feels like all the goodwill I built up is going away. And now they see me as incompetent. Not sure, maybe it's my internal problems. Listen, I can understand that. I mean, confidence is a tricky issue in game, right? I mean, Erica and me are both artists, and Redneck is many things, an artist too, but also we're all just trying to be nice people in the world. And how do you not internalize when somebody is saying something to you? You're human, right? But you got to, over time, I think you have to develop your own filter for that. And you have to have your own eventual sense of self, but it takes time. And no matter how much of a sense of self, I can't speak for you two guys. I'll let you guys take it after this. I can't speak for them. But for me, even though I have a filter, even though I have a very clear sense of myself, even though I'm very secure in some of the work that I do because I've done it for so long, if somebody catches me at the wrong moment and I'm feeling bad about myself already, that criticism will cut me like a knife. And there's nothing I can do to stop it except recover from it. Because basically they're telling me something that I'm already self-critical about or I was already insecure about, and it just hit that right on the head, and I was like, holy shit, they know, or whatever, you know what I mean? Or they're right. And they're not right, but they're just tapping into a part of me that I'm fearful of. So it's like some people are even good at that, preying on your insecurity by being critical. But anyway, sorry, you guys were going to say something, I hope, because I feel like I just tunneled into my own brain.
Yeah. What did you want us to say?
I'm sorry. So basically, how you react to criticism By internalizing it. What's the negative side of reacting to criticism? Like, how does you? What's the worst behavior, worst way you can react to somebody being critical?
By internalizing, you're basically saying you think it's a reflection on you as a person instead of a reflection of you and your a reflection on your work. That's what we're saying.
Sure.
Well, I guess that's the thing. I look at, and again, it's just how I think, is when I look at my work, if when I look at it, if it's something that is in the back of my head and they say it, I'm like, okay, that means it's something I need to address because we're thinking on the same level.
Agreed.
But then if they start adding like 50 other things, I'm like, okay, this is just an opinion. This is no longer, for me, like a beneficial thing. It's like, oh, you should fix this. You should fix this.
Oh,
the
when treasure they say test. Yeah, the treasure
yeah,
test.
and then they say I would have done it like this. I'm like, well, that's great. That's how you would have done it. But this is the thing that I did for this person, and this is how I did it. I kind of don't care how you would have done it. It doesn't mean anything to me because you would have been the one who was hired. But I always try to think of, even I'm switching to saying giving criticism. I've had times where I've had to crack the whip on somebody because it's going to affect me negatively if they can't get their shit done. Like there was one kid that we were doing visual effects for something, and he wanted to try out this new tool in After Effects, which is basically like the magic wand tool to take stuff out. And so he was doing that, and he was doing what's called rotoscoping, where you basically cut out a shape around something and it cuts it out of a background. He was doing something twice. He was doing twice the amount of work for one shot. And I'm like, why aren't you just doing it like this? He's like, oh, well, I want to try and stop using this new technique that doesn't work and just fucking do it like this. And he still didn't get the work done, and I had to fix it. I was so furious at this kid. But that's for him, it was an inability to take information and take constructive criticism to get something done. I was just like, oh
yeah,
my.
We talked about before. That's a pressure situation. The shit's got to get done. And asshole, you're not getting it done, and you're not recognizing that it's not getting done. So motherfucker's got to get blunt, and he just has to learn to deal with that bluntness in that situation. It's a professional environment. It's not a pet project. It's not a internet stream. Well, I consider my thing professional, but and you are in a working relationship. There's context there where you should be more aggressive because you're the senior role. I totally agree with your opinion there.
But I don't personalize it, and basically when somebody's asking me for feedback, they're not saying, unless they specifically say how would you do it, they're like, I don't know how to fix this, can you help me? I need another pair of eyes, can you help me? And that's how I try to look at constructive feedback from people. If you're not giving me something that's helpful, then I just kind of ignore it. Or if somebody's being a dick, I'm like, why are you being such a dick? Like, what's wrong with you? Like, that's when it starts to bother me. Like when somebody's just a nasty ass, I'm like, why are you being a dick to me? Did I do something wrong? Am I not that good? What happened? Like, so that's when I start to tunnel. But the biggest overall thing to all of this is I am my own worst critic. And I think sometimes when it bothers me, it's like, shit, I'm right. This person's right. I'm a phony. I can't do this. I can't do that. Right. And that's where my internalizing becomes poisonous. And that's where certain types of criticism can really just kind of strike a nerve with me. And to circle back around, I know I sound like a dog chasing my tail. That's why I try to be very specific and short with my criticisms, because I don't want somebody to think that I'm trying to go deeper. I'm like, this is what I would do. This is my taste on these things. This is my opinion. Go forth and fix your shit.
Yeah, I mean, criticism can shut people down. Yeah, criticism can not be helpful. It can get them to stop, which is very dangerous. But I think one of the tools to say how do you deal with criticism is try not to personalize it.
Yep.
Even when it's personal, try to just strip that out and hear what they're actually saying and see with your own filter, does this have value? Is there some value? Sometimes I try to visually place in front of my eyes. Is there some value that I can extract from what's being told to me? You know what I'm saying? Is there, even though this person's a dick, plays devil's advocate, you know what I mean, just wants to be heard, is like the full list of fucking bad critics of the world. Is there something of value in there? Is there a nugget of information that actually is helpful? And I think when you, and let me as the person receiving it, try to be understanding, try to be the bigger person, right? And try to find that nugget of information that actually will make my thing better. When I make a movie, I usually have between 10 and 30 different people at different times look at it before it's ever released. I have so many filters of people that check my work. Slav just said, well, it's easier said than done. I mean, not personalized is a sound concept. How not to personalize is what I'm wondering about. So I can answer that and say, of course it's easier said than done. Of course. It's not easy. It's not easy to follow a method of seeing somebody be nasty to you and absorbing only the good parts of it. It's extremely hard. But you benefit from it in the end. You know what I mean? You will be the person that comes out more helpful and more guided at the same time. So it's really just a choice when you can. Listen, I play a competitive video game where I have to I do it up for the stream, where I meet 5 new people, and I have to be the voice of reason. And if you talk about criticism, it comes everywhere from unwarranted, unwanted, and just playing cruel that comes back at me in this effort to make this competitive environment work in this silly game. And, well, how do I get through it? I just try to see it as, well, these guys, in some cases, are just angry, sad people. So that's their problem, not my problem. So I make it about them. And then in some cases, maybe they're actually saying something of value. And I have to be able to filter that quickly, but it's not easy to do. But in the end, if I do it, I come across happier because not only did I get the information that was valuable, but I also could see things for what they are, at least in my opinion, when it was coming at me. I kind of detach from their opinion in some way. And I try to see it as like a logical thing in front of me. I think that just helps me, but it's not easy. Nothing I say that's ever helpful. Listen, I'm not a fucking self-help guru. I'm not going to tell you quick answers. How do you do anything? I can just tell you ways of which I cope with things. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just me. And it's not always easy because somebody will say something that's very like, fuck. And it's the worst when it strikes as something I'm already afraid of, already a self-criticism that may not even be true, a lie I'm telling to myself. But if they confirm the lie, oh my God, they fucking got me. And then I'm like, oh my God, they're right. I'm shit. You know what I'm saying? But for me, one thing you'll realize in this world, maybe, the worst criticism is no criticism. Zero. That's the worst. It's deafening silence. Deafening. It'll kill you because nobody will give a shit enough to even be like, I hate you. And unfortunately, what that does is it takes people like the guy who ran for president, it's fact is what it is, who know how to use that engine of hatred to get attention. You know, whether you like them or you don't, but they understand that mechanism that silence is death. So they basically use the most negative side. But when you post something on Facebook, the worst thing you can get is zero reaction. So sometimes people get a negative one, they feed off it because it's the only reaction they can get. We talked about that before. So how do you detach? I don't know. You just focus on what you want out of the situation and how you want to feel about it. And if you can sort of say that that's my approach, then I think you have a better chance to, get out of there not feeling like dog shit when somebody yells at you. But listen, I say this, and I'm a guy that reacts very badly to some things. That's just fact, you know? And I'll tell you one last thing, how to deal with criticism. It's more of I don't know if it's a depression issue, but it's a real flaw that I have. And if anybody else, OCDiva or Redneck, if you have this too, feel free to join in, is that when I feel bad, one of the things I've done in the past is I'll look for negative voices out there. You know, I'll go find that moment. And if I can't find it currently, I'll find it in my past. I'll look for somebody who was nasty to me, and I did it recently. I was in a really bad place a couple days ago. And I just went and I was talking about some guy who was a shithead to me, and I looked him up on Facebook. And it basically relived the whole thing. And all it was a ramification, like an amplifier to the fact that I felt angry or cheated in that moment, which is a very negative emotion. And some critique of myself that I suck, a self-critique. And I went And I looked for more people subconsciously that would reinforce that in me. And I had to stop because I was just at that point just doing it to myself. I was being my own worst critic. And that negative, I was giving that negative voice a lot of power. So that can be a really a detrimental tool. But you asked me, can you think of a specific moment when you detached from criticism and what thoughts went through your mind and you aided in detachment? And then you said, sounds like self-abuse. Of course, dude. I'm human. Every human being abuses themselves in one way or the other. That's fact. And that's logic. And I think I can speak for everyone in that. And that's not arrogant to speak for everybody in that manner because we all can be shitty to ourselves. Just some of us recognize when we're doing it more than others. So can I think of a specific moment when I detached from criticism? I was playing a game the other day, and my friend David said something in the game, and he's like, well, you shouldn't do this and this and this. But he said it with such a nice tone and respectful manner that my first reaction was going to be like, well, you want to jump to a defensive posture. But my actual answer, I thought about it, and I said, you might be right. But here's why I did the specific thing that I did. But I weighed it when it was said to me. I put it on like a scale in my brain and said, is this what? Okay, this is not meant to be mean. This is meant to be helpful. Right? So therefore, okay, that passes test 1, the context of the comment. And then number 2 was, well, what is the comment? And how does that filter through my brain to make sense or not? And then I said, hey, there's some merit to it, and in the future, I may apply it. So that was a moment where I had to detach because I could have gotten very defensive. And in the game that I play, everybody's fucking defensive. And that environment is horrible because of that preemptive defensive nature from criticism. Anyway, Redneck, you could probably talk to that for a second.
Oh, I'm sure I could.
Because you play in the same competitive environment I do, and like, how do you handle defensive people?
Gosh, I mean, it's honestly something that I've been trying to figure out for a while, and definitely in the context of online games. It's like you tell somebody something, and it feels like no matter how you phrase it, like it's always offensive, and it might be because maybe that's just how they take it personally, or maybe the game has made them that way. Where generally, when people criticize, it's not meant to be helpful most of the time. It's meant to just be like beating someone up, or just being critical for no reason. Or some people just really just want to be rude, and I think because you don't have any context on the person that's giving the criticism. Like if I say, hey, I don't think we need to do this, or, hey, do you think this would work? Like generally, it's not meant to be helpful. And without having context to you as a person, they don't know what kind of area you're falling in.
So how do you deal with criticism when you don't know that context? When you don't know the people, but you're thrust into an environment, say a job, where you're forced to work together. Like, how do you gauge that? Is this friend or foe in this feedback? How do you do it?
Professionally, I handle it extremely differently than I would outside of my job, because, I mean, you really have to be kind of careful of things that you say or do, or who you're pissing off, because
you don't know.
If it's like in your job and you kind of get the feeling that maybe this guy's tone or the place he's coming from isn't genuine or good. Like, I mean, this is just another quote out of all the ones that I've remembered and know. Vince McMahon once said, you have to learn to eat shit and like the taste of it.
A fun fact, OC Diva worked for Vince McMahon for 2 years, and he dished out a lot of shit. So that was a guy that just might have just been, Vince, if you're out there, an asshole. You're fired.
He has been criticized for that, and he has been quoted to say, you have to learn to eat shit and like the taste of it. I mean, and that's just fact. Like, if it's someone you got to work with professionally that maybe, is higher up on the totem pole than you, or has stroke or whatever, you just got to eat it.
Yeah, it's tough. And how do you deal with criticism? I'm sorry. If you have something to say about that, Erica, you have the floor. But don't feel pressured to. Up to you.
Yeah. I I highly disagree. In entertainment, you have to eat a lot of shit, and when the person makes millions and millions of dollars off of your back and your hard work, it's like, oh, you gotta learn how to like to taste your shit. I'm like, you're writing my paycheck. Of course you can say that. And I've had managers who have worked above me and have tortured me. Uh, so yeah, no, I don't like to taste the shit, so I leave that fucking shit on the plate and walk away.
Yeah, it's like not only do you make 10 times my salary, asshole, but you're being a dick about it. You know what I'm saying? Like just be a little in my brain, at least in my brain, be a little fucking respectful of the fact that you already have the life advantage. No reason to make me feel small. But being that you're low on the totem pole, not only do you, I mean, I feel bad for people. I'm going to shoot over to like people who work in fast food, right? Some people who work in fast food are just trying to feed their kids and like, man, not only do they make jack shit for money, they get criticism all day long. And it makes them very hardened people after a while because people expect 5-star service at McDonald's. I'm like, yo, motherfucker, you at McDonald's. You know what I'm saying? It's $3 for a cheeseburger, fries, and a drink. So treat these people, God, don't be so critical of the fact that you didn't get it in 30 seconds. They're just some person just working for a giant corporation. Yes, they need to do their job. Yes, I get it. Yes, I get it. Yes, I get it. But I think that people get very defensive about criticism because they're criticized so much and in such an aggressive way.
That actually reminds me of a story that I can tell that's relevant
Please.
To this. I remember, like, speaking about fast food workers, I went into a Wendy's. It was sometime last year. I walked into a Wendy's, ordered some food on my lunch break. And this lady was standing at the counter. She was being very rude to this girl at the register. And, like, you could tell by looking at this girl's face. I mean, she was just miserable. And, you know, I thought, oh, man, this poor girl, that sucks. And this girl turned around to make this lady's drink, and that lady slammed her hands on the counter and said, that's not how you make that.
Oh.
And started to, just like micromanage her. Like, you need to put this much, this much, this much, as this girl's running around. And when I went up to order, I felt so bad for her. I just handed her like $5, and I was like, wow. Keep that. I just didn't know what else to do.
Oh,
I just wanted to help.
I've been there. You know how I do it? I'm a little bit of a crazy person in real life. I'm very nice, everybody out there. And then I'm going to talk about how the truth can hurt in a second. So remind me of that. But I've been in that same position in like Boston Market and other places. And the person's like, blah, 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 blah. And I'll turn around to the person. I'll be like, you realize that's a person, right? I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And I'm like, and then I'll be like, I don't work here. I don't say anything I fucking want. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to get fired from mouthing off to you because you're an asshole and you treat people like shit. Show some respect. These people are working hard to get you your chicken. So from that moment on, I was the hero of that store. They would give me free shit. I was fucking Sir Lancelot of the place because I said the truth, which is be respectful, and you're not criticizing that person. You're just exerting your own sense of self-importance because somebody made you feel like that. But where honesty can backfire, where criticism can backfire, and it has backfired on me, and I fully admit this, is when I've worked in some jobs, honesty is not always the best policy. People want your feedback. They say they do, but sometimes they really don't. Some people just want to be agreed with. They want people not to ruffle feathers, and they want one direction, not the band, to go in undisturbed. So they're like, yeah, we want everybody's feedback. We want this to go. And then I'm like, okay, well, I have feedback. I'm nice about it, but I'm very direct. I'm a very direct person. Does not mean that I'm right. Does not mean that you have to take my feedback and use it, but you ask for it. And in some cases in working, you need to just read the room and realize there are some people that want criticism, but they actually don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it at all. Not only because they can't handle it, but because they feel like they're threatened by it. They're challenged by it. You know what I'm saying?
Well, so in the context of the story I told, like the lady was basically criticizing how the girl was doing her job.
Yeah.
Like, and wasn't doing it in a constructive way. Like,
right.
I've gotten orders wrong, like at fast food restaurants, and like, I've been handed the wrong stuff, and it's like, I never freak out. It's like, come on, like relax. Like people make mistakes, and it's like if this lady's not making your drink right, just be like, hey, like
Do it again. It's not a big deal.
can you do this again? But there's a way to approach that which is more respectful and
So I think
things like
that I think that the sort of way to sort of summarize some of this conversation. What's interesting about it is originally it started off with just how to deal with criticism, of which sometimes I'm great at and sometimes I'm not as great. I'm great at dealing with feedback. Over the years, I've gotten to be a real high-level professional about hearing feedback, being very respectful of it, and incorporating into my work in a very non-confrontational way. It took me a long time to get there because I felt the need to be right all the time because I was young and dumb. And we're all young and dumb at some point, right? But I feel like there's a loop. There's like a bilateral relationship that exists between how to give criticism and how to take it, how to receive it, right? And once you understand the kind of, it's like a do unto others thing. Once you understand the kind of criticism you like to get, and I'm not saying just positive, but like in the tone or being respectful, this and that, well, then you can start to learn how to give that criticism back and not contribute to the problem, which creates a defensive posture in everybody you speak to when just voicing what's specifically your opinion at the time of which they're open to it. And I think that's a good way to sort of sum this up. And I think that there's also a sensitivity that can come into play of realizing when somebody's open to that opinion. Because some people just aren't. And that's okay too. Some people don't need to be. If a person is a firefighter doing their job, they don't need to be open to hearing what you think of what they're doing. They just need to be doing what they're doing. When you say so, Red, like you don't need to be hearing when you're trying to save somebody's fucking house what you should or shouldn't be doing. When you
I guess if it comes from somebody outside of the department, yeah,
right.
But it's like you said earlier, in like the high pressure moments, you can't really be very like coddling with somebody. Like it's
right.
like this is life or death sometimes. Like a lot of times it's not. Like around here, like the fatal wrecks or fires are like a handful that I've ever seen. But generally it's like, if it's life or death, you got to be like, hey man, this is what we got to do. Like do this right now. But
sure.
Then you can always be more constructive later on. But that's what training is for.
Right. Don't you think that in some cases, too much feedback is bad? Like in other words,
because you overwhelm people and it's hard to process.
Well, that's on a personal level, but we'll take like a product, right? Where and Erica, you've seen this happen many times. That where like something like there's too many people's opinions being considered. Too many people are allowed to have that channel open, and then the inmates start running the asylum. You know what I mean? Where you have no clear leadership because everybody's got to say, and everybody's got to say. Sometimes people don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Like even in making a game or this and that, sometimes the artist needs to be the one in charge of creating the art. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's always on a, situation basis, but I mean, we've kind of shifted from criticism over to leadership, but there has to be a lead no matter what you do. There needs to, or you get nowhere, and there can't be like, a lot of wringing of hands. Somebody needs to make a decision and something needs to get done. And sometimes the artist shouldn't be in charge because the artist will take fucking forever and want it to be perfect and nothing will ever get done. So there's times somebody needs to step in and be like, look, this needs to happen. But the one thing I was gonna touch on, and I think you kind of touched on it, Jesse, some people suck at being managers and some people suck at giving criticism, and they're just not good at it. And unfortunately, in some positions in the world, people that aren't qualified are going to be put in positions above you to be your manager or to be somebody that's supposed to be giving you feedback, and not everybody's going to be good at it.
Yeah, that sucks.
And I know when I was younger, the way I give feedback now is very different because I was very opinionated and I couldn't separate my like or my dislike of something from giving valid feedback. So that's how I've changed.
Yeah, that's real growth. I mean, that's when you get to that point of when you see when giving criticism or receiving it, that detachment somebody talked about before, that's that detachment of seeing their feedback as their feedback, even if it's presented to you as a fact. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to do what people say, but I think that it actually does apply to leadership because really criticism is one person asserting a leadership role in that moment and the other person taking a more subservient role if they want to in that particular moment. Andy said in the chat room, too many cooks spoil the broth. Yeah, 100%. So when that feedback loop gets too loud, when that feedback loop is given too much power, like you give the power to somebody else's feedback sometimes. When you're given too much too much leeway to other people's opinions, well, then your opinion can get lost in the mix. So one way to deal with criticism is to sometimes ignore it.
Yep.
If you're not open to it or it's not valid, it's all your filter, right? If that fucking thing doesn't work for you and you have the professional ability or personal ability to walk away from it, fucking ignore it. Because you don't need to deviate from. Sometimes you have a vision for something, like you're going to build a Lego castle. They don't know what the Lego castle is going to look like when you're done. They only know the piece that you're working on. So somebody would be like, well, I'd use the yellow brick, right? I don't fucking know the difference between yellow, red. But in your eyes, if you use the yellow brick here, well, they can't see the fact that there's 14 other things that have red and yellow, whatever. It doesn't match. Well, then you just have to write them off in your brain and say, they don't understand the context of what I'm doing. So it's not just the context of what they're saying to you and how they're saying it and why they're saying it, but the context of actually how it relates to what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? You really have to clarify that. Like Erica's an artist, I'm an artist. You know, Red, I'd say you're getting to be an artist as well. And I think that like there's a vision for something you want to do. And if somebody says something that doesn't fit at all, you can weigh it. But in the end, you got to be able to just be sure about not only yourself, but your vision. What are you trying to do? Like there's been many people who've come by my Twitch channel and said, you should do things this way or you should do this. And I weigh it. And then eventually, if it's a good enough idea, I'm open to hearing it. But I'm certainly not open enough to say just because they said it, I should follow it. Because it doesn't fit with what I want to do. But I definitely, I think that the last thing I'll say about this is consider the source is a valuable thing. Like surround yourself with people whose opinions you trust. You know, people who are like-minded folks. Because if you get like-minded folks around you, you're going to be very open. The channel for you will be more open. You'll be able to absorb more from it. You know? And then the people who you don't have that vibe with, close it off a little so that you can detach a little and then see it, try to decipher it in the ways that you can. I think that's good advice because once you have those people that you really trust where they're coming from, they'll really benefit you because you know that they see the world in similar ways, or you know that they're trying to see it in your way, you're trying to see it in their way, and you can have a great collaboration with that. That could be amazing. You know, because you're trying, if you're both focused on the goal together, that's a great way to start. You know, it's when you're not both focused on the same goal, that's where kind of the problems happen, I think. Any closing statements on this? I know we've kind of talked around this a lot. I'll give one more final one if you want, but anything more and how you deal with criticism?
Consider the source and understand sometimes people suck at it, and this is easier said than done, I know. Try to not take it personally. Try to focus, and it does depend on how people deliver to you. Just try to focus on the fact that they're trying to talk about your work, and even to touch on what Jesse said, ask them questions. Ask them a specific question about criticism. What exactly am I doing wrong, and how can I fix it so I don't piss you off? Obviously, don't say piss you off, but how can I make it more efficient is what I would say. What can I do to work more efficiently and cause you less headaches? That's usually how I do it. And then whatever answer they give you, you know, even to reassure yourself that they're talking about your work, not you.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with her on everything. It's exactly what I would say. Consider the source, you know, the credibility of who's delivering the criticism, and try to take some positive really from any kind of criticism you receive if possible, even if it's bad. I mean, just try to get something positive out of everything that you can.
Well, I think that's great. So my criticism for you two is thank you for being part of this. I think you did a great job providing valuable insight. And I know it's just a positive. The only negative is we can't do it longer.